Hello, everybody. My name is Anthony Trefny. This is Rational Vids, and I'm coming to you today with a special topic on a certain transit system. So, if you, the regular viewer, are ever frustrated by the amount of traffic in your city and the amount of congestion, the time it takes to get to and from work or to another place from your house, know that this kind of system is an alternative to the traditional light rail system or metro system. Sometimes it can be compatible with a light rail system or a metro system, and more compatibility the better. This is on bus rapid transit, and I find this to be another alternative transit mode for rapid transit that is also more sustainable than, although not more sustainable than light rail, is another sustainability approach, urban sustainability approach than regular automobile traffic or regular bus lines. I call it the best of both worlds. So, what is bus rapid transit? So, it's a bus line or busway which is designed to have higher capacity and reliability than a regular bus system. In other words, it combines the vehicular mode of bus transportation with the functionality of a metro system, usually characterized by rail transportation modes. And if you didn't understand all that jargon, basically it functions like a subway, but it's on buses instead of on rail cars. And if you'll see here in this picture, you'll usually have like dedicated busways with a northbound and a southbound line, or an eastbound or westbound line, sort of like this, in a closed network, that is. So some core tenets of bus rapid transit that make it different from regular bus systems are, first, the dedicated lanes and alignment. Unlike regular bus systems, bus rapid transit uses dedicated bus lanes to restrain it to a certain area, which allows it to function as rapid transit to avoid being intertwined with mixed traffic in most cases. And what I mean by mixed traffic is buses just intermixing with cars. So in order for it to function as rapid transit, you need separated lanes, right-of-way lanes, or HOV lanes, which allow the buses to move faster and increase the reliability and headway times. So, and what I mean by headway is the distance from one vehicle to another and the stops. And so the less headway, the better. It also the alignment of bus rapid transit systems, although varying, in this case in Quito, Ecuador, it's seen as a median alignment, meaning in the middle of the road, where passengers can access the station via crosswalks, and the median alignment also kind of helps the bus rapid transit system function more as a subway with the northbound and southbound lines intersecting at one station, instead of along curbside alignment. You can also do it with curbside alignment with bus only lanes, but it functions better if there's like a median platform and you don't have to transfer from one side to the other side of the road. Instead, you have this one station here as part of median alignment. So alignment basically just means that buses are at the sides of the road which the buses are on. Another core element is off-board fare collection. So unlike a lot of bus systems which use on-board fare collection, which means you pay on board the bus, usually right next to the driver, and with a regular bus system, with bus rapid transit, off-board fare collection is usually collected at the stations before you even get on the bus. So paying off-board is a much, much more efficient way because it gives the buses less time to stop, less time to board, and more time, and it increases the time the bus is able to get to the next destination. Well, it decreases the time that it should decrease the time ultimately that the bus gets to the next destination rather than increasing the time. So it increases efficiency and headway by doing off-board fare collection. Another element is intersection treatment. So bus rapid transit systems sometimes, even with dedicated bus lanes, have to have to intermix with mixed traffic, and usually this is at which is at stoplights. So with intersection treatment, bus rapid transit systems usually have more right of way than regular mixed traffic does, and that increases their head that increases better that makes it for better headway, increases speed and reliability, and reduces accidents if buses have the more right of way than regular traffic. And another core element of bus rapid transit is platform level boarding. So with regular bus systems, usually you won't have platform level boarding. You'll have to like climb stairs to get in the bus. But with platform level boarding with bus rapid transit, you step immediately into the bus without having to climb. And this makes it not only more reliable and much more efficient. That little reduction in time between climbing the stairs and just making your way immediately into the bus without climbing stairs actually reduces headway time and increases efficiency as well. And it's also good for people with disabilities, for example, wheelchair passengers, who, for example, under the circumstances of a normal bus system, would have to use a special wheelchair lift to get into the bus. That increases the bus's stopping time and increases headway, which makes for less efficiency and less reliability among passengers. So with bus rapid transit, platform level boarding is especially important, not just to increase reliability and efficiency, but to be more accessible to people with disabilities. And as you can see here, it has a really cool system in this picture. I like this picture very much. So some additional elements to bus rapid transit that I think are very important is that first, bus rapid transit systems usually have high quality vehicles, such as articulated or bi-articulated buses, and are usually powered by either hybrid fuel systems or electric systems. And not only does that increase urban sustainability and reduce emissions, but it also increases carrying capacity and passenger occupancy limits. With bus rapid transit, it helps these buses function more and more like tram systems or rail cars rather than just regular busway systems. And sometimes regular buses are unavoidable if there's a reduction in funding. So bus rapid transit does need to have the funding to invest in higher quality vehicles such as these. I like this example of this bi-articulated bus. And what I mean bi-articulated or articulated, it has that accordion function, which whenever it turns, it stretches out like an accordion. It's able to hold way more passengers. For example, instead of maximum 50 passengers, it can hold up to 200 passengers at a time, or even 300 passengers, much more like a light rail system or a heavy rail system, such as a subway can. Another key feature of bus rapid transit that makes it more attractive to the rider is what I call quality tactical urbanism. That has to do with the aesthetics, the station design. For example, under a normal bus system, you usually have stops with minimum shelter and not a lot of other characteristics, no waiting areas. With bus rapid transit systems, however, you want your stops to look more like subway stops, to advertise it as if it's a metro system rather than just a normal bus line. And these station designs usually have all the key components, such as electronic displays that tell you when the buses will arrive, maybe some maps of the different routes that the bus rapid transit system has. Of course, the off-board fare collectors, as well as some sort of portal designs where you have glass doors or these cool gate designs which open whenever the open at platform level, so people can enter the buses through articulated doorways rather than the regular buses, which only have one onboard area and one offboard area. In this, for example, you also have street art and murals, which make it more attractive to be here. You also have this tube design, which makes it really cool in appearance and aesthetics. Sometimes you'll have street trees planted. around the bus stations, maybe some artwork like this. This is in Curitiba, Brazil. We'll get to that example later, but I think it's one of the best examples of bus rapid transit I think I've seen in a while. Um, Another characteristic of bus rapid transit that increases ridership, other than quality tactical urbanism and reliability, is it needs to have a prominent brand or identity, such as the Transmilenio system in Bogota, Colombia, uses a very special logo, such as this. You'll have to, like for every stop, you'll need to not just identify it as a bus stop, but rather this is the Transmilenio system. So a prominent brand or identity advertises it as a huge metro system rather than just a regular bus line. That will help increase ridership, and increasing ridership contributes to help urban sustainability by getting less cars and automobiles off the street, and increasing the carrying capacity for buses such as these get one vehicle helps get one vehicle full of passengers rather than separate automobiles or separate buses with only 50 passengers. Another element that, although it's not required, is grade separation. So what I mean by grade separation is at grade, which is at the street level with other mixed traffic, above grade, which is on ramps or other elevated platforms, and below grade, which is in subterranean structures or tunnels. Sometimes incorporating bus rapid transit outside of dedicated bus lanes, doing grade separation can be somewhat expensive, but a good capital investment for making your metro system not just bypass traffic, but avoid traffic altogether by using these ramp systems as well. We'll get to the disadvantages and advantages of different sorts of separation of buses from traffic. And so something that needs to be avoided before we continue on with bus rapid transit, something that needs to be avoided in your city, if you ever see a city implementing a bus rapid transit system or implementing a bus rapid transit system, one thing you should definitely avoid is something known as bus rapid transit creep. And what that means is that some critics of certain bus rapid transit systems often notice that these transit systems call themselves bus rapid transit, but fail to implement the key aspects of bus rapid transit aforementioned, such as dedicated bus lanes, off-board fare systems, or platform level boarding, or anything, or articulated buses, or anything that should be in a bus rapid transit system. And some developers call this bus rapid transit creep. So instead of making it a metro system, bus rapid transit creep is when you call something bus rapid transit, but it often more functions as just an express bus line rather than full-on bus rapid transit. Sometimes it's called bus rapid transit light, but I think this is just a way of skirting responsibility, really, and not fully implementing it the correct way. Systems will do this when they lack certain amounts of funding. For example, this is the Capital Metro Rapid system in Austin, Texas. Capital Metro Rapid fails to implement a lot of the things that are required for bus rapid transit, including the subway station designs that are needed for bus rapid transit to increase its ridership. Rather, the stations for bus rapid transit in Austin are just slightly improved bus station, regular looking bus stations with just more shelter and maybe more electronic displays at these places, but less sheltering, and they look more like regular bus stops than anything else. They don't have platform level boarding in many cases. In some cases, they'll use regular buses, which can hold up to maybe 60 people, with more density inside the bus, which decreases comfort level. You'll also notice that in this area, this is the only area in the Metro Rapid system in Austin right here, which has dedicated bus lanes. And what they mean by that is that there's only like right turn only. There are like bus only lanes located along the curbsides, which are meant for pedestrian activity mostly, or parking areas in Austin. So these are the only places where they will have separated bus lanes from every other traffic. the rest of the routes around here, they only have these are all mixed traffic lanes. So the buses interact with other forms of traffic in these lanes, which significantly decreases reliability and increases headway time, which is very, very bad for reliability and very bad for ridership. So if you're implementing a bus rapid if you ever want a city to implement something similar to a metro system with buses, make sure that they use separated lanes or bus right of way only lanes throughout the corridors, not just in the central parts of the city. In fact, this area of Austin where I live, this is actually the traffic around here in this corridor area is less than in these other areas where traffic is usually congested, especially in these areas. So some of the pros and cons of BRT, according to an Indian planning system who really outlined this, this is some of the advantages and disadvantages of bus rapid transit systems according to which kind of lanes or grade separated lanes they use. The highest level of separation is grade separation, which I was talking about earlier, where you have bus rapid transit being on ramps or underground. Grade separation provides a high sense of safety and saves travel time, but of course the disadvantage is that construction of graded lanes has high capital value. It takes a lot of money to build ramps or tunnels. So, of course, it will still cost less than implementing a metro system, but it will cost more than implementing a typical bus rapid transit system. You also have just the regular BTR bus rapid transit lanes that do not interfere with mixed traffic, the dedicated bus lanes. This is obviously the best case scenario, although lanes with no interference may not be attainable always. So in some cases, you'll have to interact with stoplights, or you'll have to have the buses make right turns. And sometimes dedicated bus lanes cannot provide that. If you have like a closed bus rapid transit system, they may not be able to have the buses turn unless you implement a system like Curitiba where you have separate roads only specifically meant for buses. If you do design curbside only bus only lanes, they improve the bus rapid transit travel time, making buses competitive with the automobile. Sometimes, but the implementation of new bus lanes with street widening may displace parking and pedestrian paths as well. And if you implement these kinds of bus-only lanes on this curbsides, you'll also still have to interact with mixed traffic where you have right-turning automobiles or other buses that have to right turn, which will increase headway time and will increase the amount of time buses get to the stations. So it will overall decrease reliability in that case. And then you have this kind of separation where you have converted high occupancy vehicle lanes or HOV lanes, which allow buses to operate faster, more reliably, and more safely than buses in mixed traffic lanes. But a disadvantage of this is that since buses share this lane with high occupancy vehicles, automobiles may impede the bus operations. This makes HOV lanes less efficient than bus-only lanes. And then some pros and cons of bus rapid transit versus rail transit. For the pros, there's lower costs and less time for implementation than rail. So you'll notice that rail systems, when they are implemented, you have to lay down track. You have to build in tunnels and make sure it goes along certain corridors that intermix with that. Make sure you have to build. As for example, when you're building a light rail system, you'll have to build cross guards. Or train track crossing guards, and all of this stuff, all the infrastructure that takes to build a light rail system costs way more money than building a dedicated bus lane would. And there's also more time for implementation in rail too. For a bus rapid transit system, you could implement it within an election cycle or 4 years. But in many cases, when you're implementing a rail system, it takes at least a decade or even longer. Thus, the effects of traffic will be mitigated much faster if you build a bus rapid transit system rather than a light rail system or a heavy rail system. And when building a light rail system, especially, you'll cut off amounts of traffic, which increases congestion during construction, during rather than when you're implementing bus rapid transit dedicated lanes, which will still increase congestion, but not as much as when you're building like a light rail system. It takes less construction as well. Um, Bus operation also takes less training than operating a rail system. So when you're operating rail cars, you have to have training in conducting and all of that stuff. With bus operation, it's like it takes way less training to operate a bus than it takes to operate a rail. And since you'll be driving on roads rather than track, it's like driving a car just with a lot more safety precautions. There's also lower operating costs than rail. Rail takes a lot of maintenance. It takes a lot of operating costs versus buses, which can be fixed just about as easily as just other automobiles or other vehicles that are road-based rather than rail-based. With rail, you have to not only maintain the quality of the rail cars, but you also have to make sure the tracks are up to date. You have to make sure the tracks are stable. And this costs a lot of money. Buses can also cover wider geographical areas, and they can turn and go into neighborhoods where rail cars cannot. And this makes a bus rapid transit more accessible than say a rail system would. So, if to reduce the use of automobiles, implementing a light rail system that doesn't go as many places as a bus rapid transit system would go, is in many cases it's in many cases reduces automobile use to do that. Some cons of bus rapid transit, however, versus rail transit is that many of the vehicles may not have carrying capacity or occupancy limits needed. For example, many rail systems have larger amounts of rail cars going in and out at one time, and it holds more in some cases, rail systems may hold more passengers at once than a bus rapid transit vehicle may hold at once. This can be fixed with dedicated bus, the articulated or biarticulated buses, as I was talking about earlier. These kinds of vehicles, which can hold more passengers and more occupancy limits. Interferences in traffic can make for longer waiting periods and ride cycles, so buses still have to intermix with traffic. As it was said before, lanes with no interference may not be attainable always. So with interferences in traffic, it will, no matter how much you try to decrease headway, it will still increase headway with the bus rapid transit versus rail transit, because you won't always have areas with dedicated bus lanes. Buses also tend to have a poor public image due to many negative stereotypes, often sometimes racist and classist stereotypes of suspicious, quote unquote, suspicious people being on buses. And regardless if this is true or false, many people still have this view, which results in a risk of low ridership. So you need to improve its public image with branding, and this can be improved with proper branding, as well as branding of this system as a metro system or a rapid transit system rather than just a regular bus line. So to improve ridership, you have to make it aesthetically appealing to the point of making it look more like a metro system, such as this, rather than just a regular bus line like this. And then there's also some maintenance costs with buses that can be pretty expensive, and buying articulated and biarticulated buses vehicles in many cases has a high capital value. And there's also that high capital value of doing grade separation like this, by building ramps or building tunnels or subterranean structures, which can increase the costs so much that you would rather just implement a light rail system or combine a light rail system with a bus rapid transit system instead. So some case studies in action I want to show you of bus rapid transit that I think are really cool include this one, which is the Chengdu bus rapid transit system. So in Chengdu's case, you'll see grade separation in many cases. You'll see it intermixing. You'll see a dedicated bus lane with mixed traffic right next to it, which means it's at grade with mixed traffic. And you'll have these subway-looking stations that are professionally designed with a lot of ridership, as you can see here, that functions just as if it were a metro system. Notice that the onboarding time for these buses is very short. So as soon as it arrives at the station, it almost immediately leaves the station because the onboarding process is super fast and there's off-board fare collection. If we go a little further into the video, you'll see that these bus lanes sometimes are grade separated. And they'll go with the opposite flow of traffic in some cases. And then you'll see it arrive at another subway-looking station like this. The other example is Curitiba, Brazil.
Curitiba es el paradigma de ciudad para lo que es la definición del concepto del desarrollo urbano sustentable.
Curitiba tem uma grande importância para o mundo como um exemplo de uma cidade que se estruturou a partir do transporte. Curitiba começou a implantar um sistema de ônibus que teve muito sucesso. Evoluiu o seu sistema até um sistema que hoje se chama BRT.
Primeiro eram os ônibus em corredor exclusivo. Logo na sequência, utilizaram-se os ônibus articulados. Então, os ônibus, ao invés de transportar 70, 80 passageiros, passaram a transportar 120 e tal. Com o advento do biarticulado, isso pôde se estender até 250 passageiros. Depois foram criados os ônibus expressos. Depois foram criadas as estações tubos. A estação ficando no mesmo nível do ônibus, os passageiros podem embarcar e desembarcar em 10 segundos. Hoje, Curitiba está transportando 2.700.000 passageiros dia. É mais do que o número de habitantes que vivem na cidade.
Eu uso o sistema para trabalhar, eu uso o sistema para estudar.
So as you'll see, these are two examples where they use tactical urbanism to increase the ridership. You'll see that it uses subway-looking stations right here and those tube-looking stations for Curitiba's system. Curitiba, Brazil is actually one of the first bus rapid transit systems implemented that has received like a gold standard award. And in the terms of award ranking the bus rapid transit systems. And it's inspired many other cities since then to implement that bus rapid transit systems in their own city. Many cities in America, such as Cleveland's Health Line, as well as Indianapolis's new bus rapid transit system, and some systems in LA have tried to implement things that are similar to Curitiba's. Boston also has the Silver Line, which is its own form of bus rapid transit. So in some cases, bus rapid transit systems, if implemented effectively, can change just how, can reduce automobile ridership and increase rapid transit ridership, making for more urban sustainability because ride sharing with bus rapid transit is way more sustainable and has much less effect on the carbon footprint than it does with driving automobiles. Hold on. So, how it can be a sustainable solution? Ultimately, if a bus rapid transit network is implemented correctly and adheres to the core elements of what it is, rather than doing bus rapid transit creep or bus rapid transit light, it can reduce traffic and gridlock in the long term. Higher capacity and occupancy limits help to move people away from using automobiles and puts less vehicles on the road, reducing the carbon footprint, and reducing overall emissions. If advertised correctly as a rapid transit system, it can increase ridership and reduce the number of personal vehicles on the road. So not only does the higher capacity and occupancy limits, but also making it aesthetically appealing for ridership. Some buses can also be designed to be electrically powered, such as electric-powered or hybrid diesel-powered vehicles, reducing the need for typical fossil fuels-powered buses. Adding more of these types of buses to the fleet will help to reduce pollution in the long term. Proper rapid transit systems, including bus rapid transit, foster less urban sprawl and reduction of urban green space by focusing development along the transit corridors with transit-oriented development, which creates more of these polycentric clusters of urban development rather than that suburban sprawl. And even with that suburban sprawl, you'll have more people using bus rapid transit since these buses are accessible to the urban and suburban areas. And that gets me to my next point. Bus rapid transit systems are more sustainable in that they are more equitable. Not only can they cover wider geographic areas, but they can reach residents in lower income and marginalized communities and provide cheaper fares, along with the low costs of implementation for that system. It can also provide more jobs since operating buses takes less training. You also, it can provide more jobs since operating buses takes less training, and you can hire more unskilled workers rather than professional white collar workers or conductors or blue collar worker conductors. You'll get more blue collar than white collar. So this will overall benefit people in lower income communities as opposed to a light rail transit system. But in order for bus rapid transit to make bus rapid transit more successful for sustainability, it must base speed off of minimum headway. So when I mean minimum headway, there needs to be as many vehicles on the road as possible, and it needs to achieve minimum headway. Not if you go below the minimum headway, there's a risk of accidents or traffic accidents, but if you go above the minimum headway, there's less reliability overall because you'll have larger spacing in between buses, more time for more waiting times, more congestion at the stations. So achieving minimum headway is the goal here. It also must address headway regularity. So headway regularity means that the buses arrive on time consecutively. So it needs to be as accurate as possible. Like, for example, the buses should arrive every 10 or 15 minutes or every 5 to 10 minutes in the case of a more metro functioning system. So you make bus rapid transit into bus BRRT or bus rapid and reliable transit. So must achieve minimum headway as well as address headway regularity. It must also increase comfort. For example, not relying on this typical bus standard of 6 passengers per square meter. You decrease the density inside the buses to give passengers more space on the buses, and that can be easily achieved by using the articulated or bi-articulated buses rather than a typical bus you would see in a typical bus line or express bus line. It should reduce the use of trunk and feeder networks. And what trunk and feeder networks are is when you have multiple different bus lines along the same corridor and then they split off after into different sections of the city. Rather, you should use open instead of closed bus rapid transit networks. So open instead of closed means instead of just only dedicated bus lanes or only right-of-way bus lanes, you'll have a mix of different bus lanes. Open means you'll have dedicated bus lanes in most parts, but it can interact with mixed traffic in certain places where there needs to be turns. And you also need to have multi-corridor routes as well. So you'll have like a route going northbound and southbound and a route going eastbound or westbound, and a route going northwest to southeast or northeast to southwest. So as many routes as possible is what makes a bus rapid transit system successful. And you'll see this in places like Bogota, Colombia, Santiago de Chile, or Curitiba, Brazil. Urban sustainability increases when a bus rapid transit network is combined with a light rail transit network or existing metro system. So in order to even more decrease the emissions and carbon footprint, often a bus rapid transit network can function alongside a light rail transit network or existing metro system. The more public transit modes at one time, the better your ridership for your public transit systems will be. So, and the less automobiles that there will be on the road. It also needs subsidies for funding and allocation towards lower income communities. So serving lower income communities really helps achieve ridership in lower income communities, especially for the people that can't afford a car. It also needs subsidies for funding to help the bus rapid transit system be successful, which means a combination of public and private funds, or mostly public funding, or it can also have nonprofit donations, anything to help your bus rapid transit system become more affordable, decrease the cost of ridership while increasing your quality of service. And all of this will help make a bus rapid transit become an alternative method to a metro system as being a sustainable goal, which can help your city achieve minimum cars on the road, minimum carbon footprint, and a better alternative vision for the future. Thank you very much. Like and subscribe if you like this video, and subscribe to Rational Vids.